The Iranian pilot did not know he was being watched. This was not a routine intercept. Usually, the aging Tomcat stayed well within Iranian territorial waters, shadowing tankers from a distance. Today, the F-14 was pushing south, its nose pointed directly at the heart of a carrier strike group. What followed in the next 47 seconds would challenge every rule of engagement in the Persian Gulf. The morning sun was a dull orange disk hanging over the jagged mountains of Oman. At 24,000 feet, the air was clear and freezing. Below, the strait appeared as a narrow ribbon of dark blue, crowded with the silhouettes of oil tankers and white wakes of fast attack craft. The American pilot, call sign Guardian 1, adjusted his oxygen mask. His digital display was a sea of green and gold data points. Guardian 1 checked his fuel state. He was operating in stealth mode, his weapons bays closed, his radar cross-section no larger than a bird. He had been following the Tomcat for 10 minutes. The Iranian jet was flying at 400 knots, maintaining a steady course. It was a relic of a different era, a twin-engine giant from the 1970s, yet it remained the most capable interceptor in the Iranian inventory. The mission context was clear. Guardian 1 was fleeing a combat air patrol to protect the USS Abraham Lincoln. The carrier was currently transiting the narrowest point of the strait. Any unidentified aircraft approaching within 50 nautical miles was considered a potential threat. But this Tomcat was different. It wasn't broadcasting a standard transponder code. It was silent. The American pilot spoke into his secure radio. Control. Guardian 1. I am in the bucket on the target. He is showing no electronic emissions. Confirming visual on 1 F-14. He is heading 220. Speed 400. The controller on the carrier responded immediately. Copy. Guardian 1. You are cleared to shadow. Do not illuminate. Do not cross the median line unless engaged. The Admiral is watching this one. Copy. Control. I am staying dark. Guardian 1 replied. He nudged the throttle forward. The F-35 responded with a silent, powerful surge of thrust. He was now less than 2 miles from the Iranian's tail. On his helmet-mounted display, a sophisticated computer system was already calculating a firing solution. The AIM-120 missile in his internal bay was ready. All he had to do was press a button. But something was wrong. Guardian 1 noticed a flicker on his electronic warfare suite. It was a ghost signal, a low-frequency pulse that shouldn't exist in this sector. It wasn't coming from the Tomcat. It was coming from somewhere else. The Iranian pilot suddenly banked hard to the left. It was a violent, high-G maneuver that suggested he had finally detected something. But he didn't turn toward the F-35. He turned toward the open ocean, away from his own coast. Guardian 1 followed the move, his body pressed into the seat by the force of the turn. Control. Target is maneuvering. He is breaking the briefed flight path. He is accelerating. The morning was still quiet. It would not stay that way. 7:24 in the morning, 12 miles off the coast of Bandar Abbas. The Iranian F-14 Tomcat accelerated. Twin plumes of orange flame erupted from its exhaust nozzles as the pilot engaged afterburners. Major Ghorbani, an 18-year veteran of the Iranian Air Force, was not looking for an American fighter. He was hunting something else. His radar was cold. He was flying by data link, receiving coordinates from a ground station that claimed an unidentified contact was hovering near a critical undersea cable. Inside the F-35 cockpit, Guardian 1 watched the infrared signature of the Tomcat bloom. The heat from those engines was a massive target on his glass display. Control. Guardian 1. Target is in full burner. Crossing the median line now. He is entering international airspace at high speed. The response from the USS Abraham Lincoln was clipped. Guardian 1. This is Lincoln Control. We have him on Aegis radar. Be advised. 2 additional contacts are launching from the mainland. You are cleared to intercept. Do not fire unless fired upon. Repeat. Do not fire unless engaged. Copy. Lincoln. Intercepting now, Guardian 1 said. He pushed the side stick controller. The F-35 rolled onto its back and dived. In seconds, he was level with the Tomcat, pulling up alongside the Iranian jet's left wing. At this distance, the two aircraft were less than 500 feet apart. Guardian 1 could see the weathered camouflage of the F-14. He could see the two pilots in the tandem cockpit. The American pilot rocked his wings. It was the international signal for an unauthorized aircraft to divert. Major Ghorbani looked to his left. He saw nothing. The F-35 was a ghost. Even at 500 feet, the stealth coatings and the morning glare made the American jet nearly invisible to the naked eye if the pilot wasn't looking at the exact right spot. Ghorbani checked his own instruments. His tactical display showed a blank screen. His radar warning receiver was silent. To his systems, the sky was empty. The Iranian backseater, the radar intercept officer, spoke over the internal intercom. "Major, ground control says the contact is 5 miles ahead. Low altitude. Small cross-section. I have no lock." Ghorbani adjusted his visor. "I see nothing but blue water. Wait, my flight controls are heavy. Are you feeling that?" "Confirm. Trim is fighting me," the officer replied. Guardian 1 watched the F-14 wobble. The massive fighter, usually stable as a mountain, was twitching in the air. It was a strange sight. "Control. Guardian 1. The target is showing erratic flight characteristics. He is not responding to wing rocks. I am moving to a forward position to force a turn." The American pilot pulled ahead of the Tomcat. He was now the lead aircraft, attempting to shepherd the Iranian jet away from the carrier strike group. He looked in his rearview camera. The F-14 was still accelerating. It was now at Mach 0.95. The sound of the two massive engines began to vibrate through the air, a low-frequency hum that both pilots could feel in their chests. Suddenly, the F-14's nose pitched up violently. "He is pulling lead!" Guardian 1 shouted into his mask. He instinctively flared his own aircraft, expecting a missile launch. But no missile left the Iranian rail. Instead, the Tomcat began a series of rapid, uncoordinated rolls. It looked like a bird with a broken wing, spinning through the thin morning air. Inside the Iranian cockpit, Ghorbani was fighting for his life. "The stick is dead. I have no control." "Eject? No. Wait. Systems are coming back." Guardian 1 watched the F-14 stabilize, but the Iranian jet was now pointed directly at the USS Gravely, a destroyer positioned 10 miles ahead of the carrier. The distance was closing at 15 miles per minute. 7:30 in the morning. The Combat Information Center of the destroyer USS Gravely. Inside the dimly lit room, the air was cool and smelled of ozone. Dozens of monitors cast a blue glow on the faces of the radar operators. The atmosphere was professional but strained. Every person in the room knew that two high-speed aircraft were dancing on the edge of a kinetic engagement only miles away. A radar technician spoke into his headset. "Captain, we have a third contact, designated Skunk 01. It is a small surface contact, high speed, surface level. It is coming off the coast of the Mazandam Peninsula." The captain of the Gravely leaned over the technician's shoulder. "Is it an Iranian fast attack craft? Or a drone?" "Unknown, sir," the technician replied. "The radar cross-section is too small for a standard boat. It is moving at 60 knots. It is on an intercept course for the carrier." Hundreds of feet above the water, Guardian 1 received the update through his tactical data link. The information appeared as a small red triangle on his glass display. "Lincoln Control, Guardian 1. I copy the surface contact. The F-14 is currently 4 miles from the Gravely. He is still ignoring my presence. I am moving to intercept his flight path." The American pilot pushed his throttle. The F-35 accelerated with a smooth, effortless surge. He was now positioned directly, above and behind the Iranian Tomcat. He could see the pilot's helmet clearly through the glass of the canopy. Inside the Iranian cockpit, Major Ghorbani was receiving a different set of orders. His ground controller's voice was breaking up through heavy static. "Major, you are approaching the American screen. Turn back. Turn back now." Ghorbani adjusted his flight path. "Negative. I have a visual on the surface contact. It is a semi-submersible vessel. It is not one of ours. It is heading for the American carrier. I am engaging my targeting computer to identify the threat." Ghorbani flipped a switch on his console. the AWG-9 radar, a massive and powerful piece of Cold War technology, roared to life. He was not aiming at the stealth fighter he still could not see. He was aiming at the mysterious vessel in the water below. But to the American destroyer, it looked like the Iranian jet was preparing to fire a long-range Phoenix missile at a United States Navy ship. "Control, I have a radar paint." Guardian 1's voice was sharp and urgent. The F-14 just energized his radar. He is in active search mode. His nose is pointed directly at the Gravely. The response from the carrier was immediate. It was the voice of the Admiral. "Guardian 1, this is the Admiral. You are cleared to illuminate the target. Paint him with your fire control radar. Let him know you are there. If his nose stays on the Gravely for more than 10 seconds, you are cleared to engage." "Copy, Admiral," Guardian 1 replied, painting him now. The American pilot adjusted his sensor settings. He directed the disto, powerful beam of his radar directly onto the Iranian F-14, 7:32 in the morning. Inside the Iranian cockpit, the silence was shattered. The radar warning receiver erupted in a continuous, high-pitched scream. A red light flashed on Ghorbani's instrument panel. It was a lock-on warning. Major Ghorbani's heart hammered against his ribs. He looked wildly around the sky. There was nothing there. No smoke trails. No aircraft. Just the empty blue. Yet, his plane was telling him that a missile was seconds away from being launched. He realized with a surge of adrenaline that he was no longer the hunter. He was the prey. 7:34 in the morning. Over the glassy waters of the strait, Major Ghorbani did not hesitate. He slammed the throttles forward and yanked the stick to the left. The F-14 Tomcat groaned under the sudden stress of a 6G turn. Huge wings swept forward, automatically to provide maximum lift. He was performing a high-speed barrel roll, a classic defensive maneuver designed to force an unseen attacker to overshoot and fly directly into his sights. Inside the F-35, Guardian 1 watched the massive Iranian jet tumble through the sky. "Control. Target is maneuvering aggressively. He is braking left. High G. He is trying to find me." The American pilot stayed calm. His flight computer did most of the work, adjusting the control surfaces of the stealth fighter to maintain a perfect lag pursuit position. He did not overshoot. He simply banked the F-35 and stayed exactly 2 miles behind the Tomcat's tail. On his helmet display, the green circle stayed locked on the Iranian's engines. Guardian 1. Lincoln Control. Status of the surface contact? The American pilot glanced at his downlook sensor. The surface contact is still closing on the Gravely. Speed is 65 knots. It is a low-profile vessel. It looks like a semi-submersible drone. The F-14 is not engaging it. He is looking for me. Inside the Iranian cockpit, the radar intercept officer was shouting, "Major! 6 o'clock. He is right behind us, and I cannot see him on the scope." Ghorbani breathed heavily into his mask. His vision blurred slightly at the edges from the G-force. He is using a stealth platform. Release chaff. Brake right. Now. A cloud of silver metal strips erupted from the rear of the Tomcat. To a traditional radar, this would create a massive blind spot. To the F-35's advanced active electronically scanned array, it was merely a temporary distraction. Guardian 1's computer filtered out the noise in less than a second. Control. Guardian 1. Target has deployed countermeasures. He is now heading 300. He is moving back toward the Iranian coast. I am maintaining the 6 o'clock position. On the bridge of the USS Gravely, the captain watched the tactical plot. The Iranian fighter was no longer pointing at his ship, but the mysterious surface drone was now only 5 miles away. Identify that surface contact. Is it a threat? Sir, it is broadcasting a civilian transponder now, the technician said. It is claiming to be an autonomous environmental research vessel, but the speed is all wrong. No research drone moves at 60 knots. The tension in the Combat Information Center was reaching a breaking point. Two different dramas were unfolding simultaneously. In the air, a high-tech game of cat and mouse. On the water, a potential suicide drone approaching $1 billion destroyer. 7:36 in the morning. Major Ghorbrani leveled his wings. He was breathing hard. He looked in his mirrors. Still nothing. The sky behind him was a perfect, empty blue. But the screaming in his ears from the radar warning receiver told him the truth. A predator was hovering just out of sight, its finger on the trigger. He is not firing, Ghorbrani whispered to his backseater. Why is he not firing? Maybe he wants us to fire first, the officer replied. Ghorbrani looked down at his weapons panel. He had 2 heat-seeking missiles and 1 long-range radar-guided missile left. He reached for the master arm switch. His gloved finger hovered over the toggle. If he flipped it, the F-14 would become a live weapon system. Guardian 1 saw the change on his sensors. A new light flashed on his display. Control. Guardian 1. Target has energized his fire control system. He is arming his weapons. I repeat, the F-14 is hot. 7:38 in the morning, 10 miles west of the Tumb Islands. Major Ghorbrani's thumb clicked the master arm switch to the up position. On his ancient display, the word armed appeared in stark green letters. He was no longer just a pilot conducting a patrol. He did not know where the American was, but he knew that if he did not find him in the next 60 seconds, his career and his life might end in a fireball over the Gulf. Inside the F-35, Guardian 1 saw the change instantly. His electronic warfare suite detected the specific frequency change as the Iranian radar shifted from a search mode to a dedicated tracking mode. The American's helmet-mounted display glowed a deep, pulsing crimson. A digitized female voice whispered, "Shoot into the pilot's ear." It was a computer-generated recommendation, based on the fact that an enemy aircraft had just armed its weapons within lethal range. Control. Guardian 1. Target is hot. I have a valid firing solution on the F-14. Requesting permission to engage. The silence from the carrier lasted for 3 long seconds. On the bridge of the USS Abraham Lincoln, the admiral looked at the tactical plot. He saw the F-14. He saw the mysterious surface drone now only 3 miles from the destroyer Gravely. The entire region was a powder keg, and the match was half struck. Guardian 1. This is the admiral. You are not cleared to fire. I repeat, you are not cleared to fire. Maintain your lock. If he launches, you are cleared to defend. Do not be the one to start this war. Copy, Admiral, Guardian 1 replied. His voice was flat, professional, but his heart rate was climbing. He shifted his thumb to the weapons release button on the side stick. He felt the cold plastic against his glove. 7:39 in the morning. Below them, the USS Gravely was not waiting for permission. The ship's automated defense system, the Phalanx close-in weapon system, began to slew its radar dish. The 20mm Gatling gun pointed its snout toward the approaching surface drone. The drone was now moving at 70 knots, skipping over the tops of the waves. It was less than 2,000 meters from the destroyer's hull. Inside the Iranian cockpit, the radar intercept officer was screaming over the static. The lock is steady. He is going to fire. Major, we must break. Now, now. Ghorbrani pulled the stick back with both hands. He forced the massive Tomcat into a vertical climb. He was trading speed for altitude, hoping to confuse the American's radar by putting his engines against the backdrop of the sun. The twin engines roared, burning through thousands of pounds of fuel in seconds. The aircraft shook violently. Rivets in the airframe, decades old, strained against the pressure. Guardian 1 followed him up. The F-35 climbed effortlessly. It did not shake. It did not complain. It simply pivoted on its axis, its nose staying glued to the Tomcat's tail. The two jets soared toward 30,000 feet, leaving a twin trail of white vapor against the deep blue of the morning sky. Control. We are vertical, Guardian 1 reported. Target is at Mach 0.8 and climbing. He is not breaking his lock. He is trying to gain a positional advantage. The American pilot watched the timer on his display. The engagement had been active. for nearly 3 minutes. But the true crisis was just beginning. The computer predicted that in exactly 20 seconds, the F-14 would reach the top of its climb and be forced to roll over. At that moment, the Iranian pilot would have a clear view of the horizon. He would also have his best chance to fire a heat-seeking missile. 7:40 in the morning. The two fighters reached 32,000 feet. The air was thin and the sky was turning a darker shade of indigo. The F-14 began to shudder as it reached the edge of a stall. Its nose started to drop. "He is falling through," Guardian 1 said. "I am staying with him." The next 47 seconds would decide everything. 7:41 in the morning. 32,000 feet. The Iranian F-14 Tomcat reached the apex of its vertical climb. For a heartbeat, the massive fighter hung motionless against the deep blue of the upper atmosphere. Then, the nose dropped. Gravity took hold. The aircraft began to tumble forward into a high-speed dive. Major Ghorbani slammed his rudders. He caught the air. The Tomcat stabilized, screaming toward the ocean at Mach 1.2. Behind him, Guardian 1 did not flinch. The F-35 banked with surgical precision. The American pilot's helmet-mounted display tracked the Iranian jet through the floor of his own cockpit. The digital logic of the aircraft was perfect. The target was centered. The firing solution was green. 7:41 and 5 seconds, Guardian 1 whispered. The countdown began. 47 seconds of total weapon system dominance. Inside the Iranian cockpit, the radar warning receiver was no longer chirping. It was a solid, unrelenting tone. It was the sound of impending death. Major Ghorbani's hand was shaking on the stick. He could feel the heat of the sun through his canopy. He looked at his radar intercept officer. The man was staring at the electronic warfare panel. His face was pale behind his mask. "Major, he is inside our minimum range," the officer shouted. "Break! Break now!" Ghorbani did not break. He pulled the nose up. He was looking for a visual. "I see him. 10 o'clock high. He is crossing the sun." Guardian 1 saw the Iranian pilot look up. "Control. Guardian 1. Target has visual contact. He is maneuvering to engage with infrared missiles. I am maintaining lock. My bay doors are primed." 35 seconds remaining in the window. On the USS Abraham Lincoln, the Admiral stood frozen in front of the primary tactical display. The two icons on the screen were nearly overlapping. Guardian 1. Lincoln Control. Do not be the first. Repeat. Do not be the first. Copy. Control. Guardian 1 replied. His voice was flat, professional, but his heart rate was climbing. He shifted his thumb to the very edge of the launch button. "He is turning into me." 28 seconds. Below them, the USS Gravely was in a state of maximum alert. The destroyer's automated gun system was seconds away from firing on the mystery surface drone. The entire Strait of Hormuz was vibrating with electronic energy. Radars from 3 different nations were painting the sky. 7:41 and 20 seconds. Major Ghorbani saw the F-35 clearly now. The gray, jagged shape of the stealth fighter was beautiful and terrifying. He shifted his finger to his own missile trigger. "I have a tone. I have a heat signature," the Iranian Tomcat's computer chirped. It was a weak lock, but it was enough. Both pilots were now staring at each other across a mile of empty space. Both had their fingers on the triggers of missiles that could not miss. "At this range, 15 seconds, Guardian 1 said. His voice was a low growl. "He is looking right at me. He is going to fire." 10 seconds, the American computer voice stated calmly. The world seemed to slow down. The roar of the engines faded into the background. There was only the green glow of the symbols and the weight of the decision. If Guardian 1 fired, he would save himself but start a war. If he waited, he might die in a second of fire and metal. 5 seconds. Major Ghorbani closed his eyes for a fraction of a second. He began to pull the trigger. 3 seconds. 2. 1. Then. 7:41 and 47 seconds. The exact center of the crisis. The digital world died. In the cockpit of the F-35, the vibrant green and crimson symbols on the helmet-mounted display simply vanished. The high-resolution image of the world outside was replaced by total darkness. Guardian 1 felt a sudden, sickening weightlessness as the fly-by-wire computers lost their primary data stream. The constant, comforting hum of the electronics was replaced by a terrifying, high-pitched whine that lasted for exactly 2 seconds before falling into absolute silence. The American pilot pulled his hand back from the trigger. He had no choice. The weapons bay doors, which had been seconds from cycling open, remained frozen in place. The targeting logic was gone. The missile was no longer receiving a signal. For the first time in his career, Guardian 1 was flying. $100 million glider. Control. Lincoln. I have a total system failure, he said into his mask. But there was no reply. His radio was dead. The side tone of his own voice did not even echo in his ears. Less than a mile away, Major Ghorbrani experienced a different kind of chaos. The Iranian F-14, built with older and more robust analog circuitry, did not go completely dark. Instead, the cockpit filled with the smell of burning copper. Sparks showered from the radar control panel near the backseater's knees. The massive AWG-9 radar screen flared into a brilliant, blinding white before flickering out. Ghorbrani's finger had been halfway through the trigger pull. The physical mechanism resisted him as the electrical solenoid that allowed a missile launch lost power. He yanked the stick. But the Tomcat did not respond with its usual grace. The hydraulic pumps were still working, but the stability augmentation system was fried. The aircraft began to wallow in the thin air, its nose hunting aimlessly for the horizon. Eject! Eject! His radar intercept officer screamed. No! Ghorbrani shouted back, fighting the heavy controls. Look! The American! Look at the American! The Iranian pilot looked through his canopy. The F-35, which had been a predatory shadow just seconds ago, was now drifting. Its control surfaces were twitching in a frantic, uncoordinated dance as the backup flight computers struggled to reboot. The two deadliest machines in the sky were suddenly vulnerable. They were no longer combatants. They were two pieces of metal falling through space. 7, 41, and 55 seconds. Below them, on the surface of the strait, the mystery drone known as Skunk 01 underwent a violent transformation. The vessel did not explode. Instead, a series of high-intensity white flashes erupted from its hull. The 60-knot wake it had been carving into the water vanished as the engine ceased. The drone began to spin in tight circles, shedding pieces of its composite skin. On the bridge of the USS Gravely, every screen in the Combat Information Center turned a uniform shade of gray. The captain grabbed the edge of the chart table as the emergency lights kicked in, casting a dim red glow over the stunned crew. "Report!" the captain barked. "Sir, everything is down," the radar officer said, his voice trembling. "Aegis is offline. Communications are dead. We just took a massive electromagnetic surge. It didn't come from the Iranians. It came from that drone." 7:42 in the morning. The sky was suddenly, eerily quiet. The screaming radar warnings had stopped. The tactical data links were gone. The 47-second window of the engagement had been closed by a force that neither side understood. Guardian 1 stared through his visor at the 14. He could see Major Ghorbrani's white helmet clearly. The Iranian pilot was looking back at him. In that moment, the geopolitical tension and the military orders did not matter. There was only the shared shock of two men who had been seconds from killing each other, now united by a common mystery. The American's primary flight display flickered. A single line of text appeared in amber. "System rebooting. Stand by." The crisis had not ended. It had changed shape. 7:44 in the morning. High over the southern reaches of the strait, the cockpit of the F-35 was no longer a silent sanctuary of high technology. It was a vibrating box of emergency lights and warning tones. Guardian 1 gripped the side stick with both hands. He felt the aircraft lurch as the backup flight control computers finally linked with the primary surfaces. The digital displays flickered once, twice. Then, a simplified version of the horizon appeared. It was a basic wireframe HUD, a skeleton of the sophisticated system he had used only minutes ago. Lincoln Control. Guardian 1. Do you read? I am in a degraded flight state. I have no radar. I have no weapons. Confirming visual on the target. A burst of static filled his ears. Then, a distant and distorted voice broke through. Guardian 1. This is Lincoln. We hear you. We are operating on emergency channels. We have lost Aegis. We have lost satellite link. What is your status? I am flying, Guardian 1 said. He looked to his left. The F-14 is still with me. He looks like he is struggling. His engines are smoking. Less than a mile away, Major Ghorbani was fighting a different battle. The Iranian F-14 was not designed to recover from a massive electromagnetic surge. The cockpit was filled with a thin, acrid gray smoke. His radar intercept officer was using a small fire extinguisher on the floorboards. The aircraft was heavy and unresponsive. Ghorbani had to use every ounce of his physical strength to keep the nose from dipping toward the waves. The Iranian pilot looked out his canopy. He saw the F-35. The American jet was no longer a predatory ghost. It was just another pilot struggling to stay in the air. Ghorbani keyed his own radio, switching to the international distress frequency. American pilot, this is Iranian Air Force. Do you hear me? Guardian 1 heard the voice through a wall of electronic noise. It was the first time he had ever heard an Iranian pilot speak directly to him during an intercept. I hear you. Iranian aircraft. I am Guardian 1. My plane is damaged, Ghorbani said. His English was accented but clear. My navigator is injured. We are not engaging. I repeat, we are not engaging. Copy, Guardian 1 replied. I am not engaging. We are both in trouble. 7:47 in the morning. Below them, the mystery vessel Skunk 01 had stopped its erratic spinning. It sat dead in the water, 3 miles from the USS Gravely. On the destroyer, the crew had managed to bring the secondary optical sensors online. They were no longer looking at a radar blip. They were looking at a high-resolution video feed of the drone. The captain of the Gravely stared at the monitor. The vessel was not a military craft. It was covered in commercial-grade sensors and satellite dishes. On the side of the hull, painted in bold black letters, was the name of a private research foundation based in a neutral European country. It is a test bed, the captain whispered, a non-state actor. They were testing an autonomous electronic warfare suite in the most congested waterway on Earth. Sir, the technician said, the drone is transmitting again. But it is not a weapon signal. It is a distress beacon. It is reporting a catastrophic system failure and an uncontrolled energy discharge. The realization hit the bridge crew like a physical blow. The 47 seconds of weapons lock, the near start of a global conflict, and the total blackout of 2 advanced air forces had been caused by a private company's experiment gone wrong. The third party was not a hidden enemy. It was a technological accident. Guardian 1 watched the F-14 begin a slow, shallow descent toward the Iranian coast. Control, Guardian 1. The F-14 is heading home. I am going to shadow him until he reaches his territorial waters. He is barely flying. Copy, Guardian 1. The carrier replied. The Admiral concurs. Stay with him. The world is watching, but for now, the guns are cold. 7:48 in the morning, 3,000 feet over the coastal waters of Iran. The F-35 Lightning II maintained a steady position, 500 meters behind and slightly above the struggling F-14. Guardian 1 watched the Iranian jet through his canopy. The Tomcat was leaving a thin, dark trail of hydraulic fluid in the air. Its wings were stuck in a semi-swept position, a mechanical failure caused by the electrical surge. The aircraft looked like a wounded predator trying to reach its den before its strength gave out. Control, Guardian 1. We are crossing into the Iranian search and rescue region. The target is at 5,000 feet. Speed is 280 knots. He is barely above stall speed. The voice from the carrier was faint, competing with a layer of solar-like static. Copy, Guardian 1. We have eyes on the situation via high-altitude drone. 2 Iranian search and rescue helicopters are launching from Bandar Abbas. You are cleared to remain on station until they have a visual. Do not cross the 12-mile limit. Inside the Iranian cockpit, Major Ghorbani was drenched in sweat. His flight suit was heavy with the heat of the cockpit and the physical exertion of fighting the unassisted flight controls. Every time the wind shifted, the Tomcat threatened to roll onto its back. Beside him, his radar intercept officer was manually checking the circuit breakers. Most of them were scorched black. Ghorbani keyed his radio. The frequency was noisy, but the connection held. American pilot. Guardian 1. We have the coast in sight. My engines are holding at 60%. We can make the airfield. Guardian 1 looked at his own fuel state. He had enough for another 20 minutes of loitering. Copy. Major. I will stay with you until your SAR birds arrive. You have a long way to go for a dead stick landing. There was a long pause on the radio. The 2 pilots, who had been seconds away from a lethal exchange of missiles, were now linked by the most basic rule of the air: survival. Guardian 1. Ghorbani said, his voice dropping an octave. That vessel, the one in the water, what was it? We are still identifying, the American replied. It appears to be a private research drone. It was not ours. It was not military. It was a mistake that almost killed us both. A mistake, Ghorbani repeated. The words sounded bitter in his mask. 47 seconds of lock. For a mistake. 7:51 in kind, the morning. Below them, the surface of the Gulf was starting to crawl with activity. Iranian patrol boats were racing toward the Donam, dead drone, their wakes white and sharp against the blue. From the other direction, United States Navy RHIBs were launching from the destroyer Gravely. Both nations were moving to secure the piece of technology that had nearly ignited a regional war. Inside the combat information center of the USS Abraham Lincoln, the admiral watched the feed. The tension had shifted from tactical to political. Make sure our boys don't engage those patrol boats. We want that drone, but we don't want a firefight over a piece of civilian junk. Inform the State Department. We need a neutral recovery team. 7:52 in the morning. 2 Iranian Bell 212 helicopters appeared on the horizon, flying low over the water. They were headed for the Tomcat. Major Ghorbani saw them and felt a wave of relief that nearly made him lose his grip on the stick. He looked over his shoulder. The gray F-35 was still there, a silent guardian in the morning light. I see my escort, Ghorbani said. You should turn back now. Guardian 1. You are very close to our missiles on the shore. They do not know what we know. Copy. Major. Guardian 1 replied. He performed a slow, graceful bank to the south. Safe landing. Guardian 1. Out. The F-35 peeled away, its engine roaring as the pilot pushed the throttle to regain altitude. The American looked back one last time. The Tomcat was a small speck against the brown mountains of the Iranian coast. The immediate crisis was over. But as he climbed back toward 30,000 feet, Guardian 1 looked at his blank sensor screens. The sky felt empty. The mystery of the drone was solved, but the implications were just beginning to surface. The world had almost ended because of a software glitch in a private laboratory. 7:55 in the morning. The Gulf of Oman. The USS Abraham Lincoln appeared as a gray sliver on the horizon. Guardian 1 adjusted his descent path. His flight displays were still operating in a basic backup mode. The sophisticated auto-land system, which usually made carrier landings a matter of monitoring computers, was completely offline. He would have to land the F-35 manually. In the carrier world, this was known as calling the ball the old-fashioned way. Lincoln Bridge. Guardian 1. I am at 3 miles. leveling at 1,200 feet. "I have the ball." The landing signal officer's voice came through the headset, clear of the previous interference. "Copy. Guardian 1. Wind is 30 knots down the angle. You are slightly high. Adjust your power." Guardian 1 moved the throttle. The engine responded with a muted roar. He felt the weight of the aircraft as it settled into the groove. To his left, the vast expanse of the ocean was empty. To his right, the destroyer Gravely was visible, stationary near the site of the dead drone. The silence in the cockpit was heavy. Usually, after a successful intercept, there was a sense of accomplishment. Today, there was only a cold, hollow feeling in his stomach. 8:00 in the morning. The F-35 crossed the fantail of the carrier. Guardian 1 saw the four steel arresting wires stretched across the deck. He slammed the aircraft down, feeling the violent jar. As the landing gear absorbed the impact, the tailhook snagged the number 3 wire. The jet was yanked backward, its nose pitching down, as it came to a complete stop in less than 300 feet. He sat in the cockpit for a long moment, his hands still gripping the controls. The canopy slid open, and the humid, salty air of the Gulf rushed in. A flight deck sailor, in a purple jersey, ran toward the plane to begin the refueling process. The sailor looked up and gave a thumbs up. Guardian 1 did not return the gesture. He unbuckled his harness and climbed down the ladder. At the same moment, 60 miles to the north, Major Ghorbani was fighting his own battle. The runway at Bandar Abbas was a shimmering strip of black asphalt in the desert heat. His F-14 was heavy. The hydraulic pressure was flickering near zero. He had only one chance: to get the heavy fighter on the ground. "Major, gear is down and locked," his radar intercept officer reported. 3 green lights. "Copy," Ghorbani said. "Hold on." The Tomcat touched down hard. Smoke billowed from the tires as Ghorbani stood on the brakes. The aircraft skidded slightly to the right, the damaged wing sweep mechanism causing an uneven lift. But the nose stayed straight. The giant jet slowed, finally coming to a stop at the very end of the overrun strip. Ghorbani shut down the engines. The silence that followed was absolute. He pulled off his helmet and leaned his head against the headrest. He could hear the sirens of the emergency vehicles approaching, but they sounded miles away. 8:05 in the morning. Guardian 1 walked into the ready room of the USS Abraham Lincoln. The room was full of pilots, but no one was talking. Every eye was fixed on the large television screen at the front of the room. It was a news feed from a global network. The headline scrolling across the bottom of the screen was already updated. Unidentified electronic pulse disrupts military operations in the Strait of Hormuz. Both Washington and Tehran deny hostile intent. The admiral was standing in the corner, his arms crossed. He looked at Guardian 1 as he entered. There was no praise, there was no debriefing speech. "Go to the intel center," the admiral said quietly. "The State Department is already on the line. They want to know exactly what you saw for those 47 seconds. Everything depends on your report." Guardian 1 nodded. He felt the exhaustion finally hitting him. He had spent less than an hour in the air, but he felt as if he had aged 10 years. He turned and walked out of the room, the sound of his flight boots echoing on the metal deck. The morning was over. The crisis was resolved. But as the American pilot walked down the narrow corridors of the ship, he knew the world had changed. The machines had failed, and for 47 seconds, the fate of millions had rested on the trembling finger of a man who was just as afraid as his enemy. 2 days later, the Pentagon, Washington, D.C. The fluorescent lights of the secure briefing room hummed with a sterile energy. On the wall, a massive digital map of the Strait of Hormuz was frozen in a sea of data points. The incident was no longer a tactical event. It was a strategic puzzle that had bypassed traditional military intelligence. Analysts from the National Security Agency sat in silence as the final report on the mystery drone was presented. The vessel, known as Skunk 01, was not a weapon of war. It was a prototype. It belonged to a private maritime technology firm based in Zurich. The company had been testing a system called atmospheric electronic shielding. It was designed to protect commercial tankers from GPS spoofing and pirate interference. But in the high-tension environment of the strait, the system had undergone a catastrophic feedback loop. A senior intelligence officer spoke to the gathered staff. The drone was not hacked. It was not an attack. It was a synchronization error between its navigation computer and its defensive arrays. When it detected the F-35 and the 14 in close proximity, it interpreted their radar signatures as a massive electronic assault. It responded by dumping its entire power reserve into a single, omnidirectional pulse. He paused, looking at the infrared footage of the two jets. For 47 seconds, that drone created a total electronic vacuum. It didn't just blind our pilots, it blinded the most sensitive sensors on both sides of the Gulf. We were seconds away from a kinetic exchange based on a phantom threat. In Tehran, a similar meeting was taking place inside the headquarters of the Iranian Air Force. Major Ghorbani stood at the back of the room. He was still wearing his flight suit, though his wings had been removed for the duration of the inquiry. He watched the grainy footage from his own cockpit. He saw the moment his radar went white. He saw the flicker of the American stealth fighter. A general gestured toward the screen. "Major, you were prepared to fire. Why did you hesitate in the final 3 seconds?" Ghorbani cleared his throat. "General, the target did not behave like a missile. It drifted. I realized that if the American had wanted to kill me, he would have done so minutes earlier. I chose to wait until my systems could confirm a launch. By the time they did, the blackout occurred." The general nodded slowly. "Your restraint is noted. But the Americans now know we can detect their stealth platforms under specific conditions. This will change their behavior. It will change the shadow war we have been fighting for 20 years. The strategic aftermath was already rippling through the diplomatic world. In Washington, the State Department issued a formal protest to the Swiss government regarding the unregulated testing of electronic warfare equipment in international shipping lanes. In Tehran, the government used the incident to claim that foreign interference was the primary cause of instability in the region. But behind the public rhetoric, there was a quieter realization. Both militaries began a massive review of their automated engagement protocols. If the F-35 had been operating on a fully autonomous AI pilot, the missile would have been launched the moment the Tomcat armed its weapons. The event had proven that the faster the technology became, the more dangerous the human element was. The 47 seconds of the shadow had been a warning. It was a glimpse into a future where the machines could start a war before the humans even knew they were at risk. 1 week later, the Naval War College. The incident was already being taught as a primary case study in the Department of Strategic Studies. On the large screens of the auditorium, it was referred to simply as the Hormuz Anomaly. Hundreds of future commanders sat in silence as they watched the synchronized telemetry of the F-35 and the 14. They saw the moment the sensors peaked. They saw the total electronic collapse. A senior strategist stood at the lectern. His voice was measured and authoritative. What we witnessed on that Tuesday morning was a collision between two eras of warfare. On one side, we had the most advanced stealth platform ever built. On the other, a legendary interceptor from a previous generation. Between them was a third factor, a private, non-state piece of technology that neither side anticipated. He adjusted his glasses and looked at the audience. We often talk about the speed of modern combat. We talk about how artificial intelligence will soon make decisions faster than a human brain can process them. But the Hormuz Anomaly tells a different story. If an automated system had been in control of either cockpit, those 47 seconds would have resulted in a regional war. The machines would have followed their logic to the only possible conclusion. They would have fired. The strategist paused for effect. The peace was held not by technology, but by the lack of it. It was the hesitation of two experienced pilots that saved the day. It was the human ability to recognize that something was wrong, to see the ghost in the machine, and refuse to pull the trigger. In the South China Sea and the Mediterranean, military planners began to rewrite the rules for autonomous drones. The incident proved that the most dangerous weapon in the modern world was not a missile or a stealth jet. It was the unpredictable interference of the civilian world in a military space. The Shadow War was no longer just between nations, it was between the order of the military and the chaos of global innovation. Guardian 1 returned to his flight schedule. He still flew the same tracks over the same blue water, but every time he saw a civilian vessel or a research buoy, he felt a flicker of tension. He knew how fragile the digital world really was. He knew that the symbols on his helmet were only as good as the electricity that powered them. Major Gorbani was reassigned to a training squadron. He no longer flew the front lines. He spent his days teaching younger pilots how to fly when the computers failed. He told them the story of the day he saw a ghost in the sky. He taught them that a pilot's most important tool was not the radar, but the eyes in his head and the restraint in his heart. The Strait of Hormuz remained the most congested and contested waterway on Earth. The tankers continued to move. The gray ships of the Navy continued to patrol. The sun continued to rise over the jagged mountains of Oman. To the rest of the world, it was just another quiet week. In the Middle East, no missiles flew. No ships were lost. But history had shifted in those 47 seconds. Both sides had looked into the abyss and realized that the most advanced weapons can be stopped by something neither side controls. Modern warfare is decided not by who fires first, but by who chooses not to fire at all. The morning was quiet again, and for now, that was enough.